Yes, first of all, thank you for being here and being interested in what I will say. And I don't know if all of you know actually OXFAM. OXFAM is a development organization and campaigns organization which has a confederation of 17 affiliates. Why I say that is that this is quite a heavy or large organization, and we bring in a lot of experience also, of course, with working with media. I say that because otherwise you might think, why is she talking about the media? Why do you want to address certain things like mass media? But for our work, especially coming from a campaigns perspective, it is very important to have a healthy cooperation with media. And these are print media, these are the digital media, so that is important to our work, and that's why I would like to address a few points. Even though I believe that our brothers and sisters actually from the African continent would be in a really much better position to say certain things from their point of view. But after having been there and lived there and worked there for 23 years, I think I can at least give my input, and I hope I get some feedback and critical questions from the audience also. So in general, if we look around, I mean, every area of our life, every sector in business is somehow connected to media. Whether it's entertainment, whether it's politics, I mean, we can't turn into any direction without being confronted with media. And that is the case in Europe as well as on the African continent. And Dagmar mentioned also situations where you have a huge coverage, for example, with telecommunication. And I recently actually read in a WHO publication that in Tanzania, I think we had somebody here from Tanzania actually, you have more mobile phone connections than you have latrines. So I think this is quite a steep statement of the people when it comes to what is it worth and how they value it. So if they have a choice, they would choose a telecommunication over having a latrine. So just some food for thought on that. At the same time, we all contribute and we all live in something we call these days a global village. And it's actually the media who shrunk the world so it became a global village. And thanks to telecommunication, radio, and all the digital achievements of these days, distances are reduced, and on a, not hourly, even minutely pace, we know what is happening thousands of kilometers away. So while a general development took place in many African countries, especially as of the 90s onwards, and I mean mainly also the developments towards democratization, Kenya was mentioned a couple of times as an example, but there are many more also in Southern Africa. Mass media also have undergone a fundamental change. Of course, this came hand in hand with the invention and promotion of the internet in the 90s. And when I look back, this became such an integral part of my life and my work that I'm every time amazed when I say it was only in '94 that the internet was really brought into public, because it's such a short time and it made such an impact. Anyway, during the last 15 or 20 years, the African history witnessed all these dramatic changes, and the control of African leaders, which were often dictators, also became less, and the era of corporations, of multinationals, which are actively involved into the media business. Also, we heard example of Kenya on that. became more and more powerful. And they were challenging the old structures just by growing and just by existing and building up their competencies and their sphere. Just to mention again the importance the media play these days, the Human Development Report of 2013, which has the title The Rise of the South, acknowledges that countries are increasingly interconnected through trade, through migration, but as well through information and communication technologies. And that means, as a result, that human progress in a diverse world depends more and more on the new forms of media. In African countries and communities, privately owned commercial media are emerging in growing numbers, and they are offering, for some cases very suddenly, a diversity of opinion. And people are suddenly confronted with choice. They can choose what critical mass they take on, what critical opinion they would like to follow. Whereas before, everything was more or less streamlined and mainstreamed by the big brother, which in many cases was the government. So this is also a lot which has been asked from the citizens of countries, and it needs education and also mechanisms to deal with all the floating around opinions and choices what suddenly has. This is a long way, and here mass media, which were mainly used earlier for one-dimensional propaganda of governments, became more important because they took on the responsibility of educating people. But I always have the feeling that education sounds very top-down, and I think it is more awareness building and involving people into processes of democratization, and not only informing them, which is also sounding to me like a one-way road, but to really involve them and to have them, for example, to more community media and more small-scale media options and possibilities involved in a participatory process to build a healthy governing structure within their own communities, within their own countries as such, if you see the different layers and levels here. So I would like to also go a little bit back on this use for education, for awareness, to our work at OXFAM, where we are using, of course, the mass media, or try not to only use them, but involve them into what we feel is the right path and the needed awareness in communities to fight poverty. Because our vision and mission is that a world without poverty is possible, and it is our responsibility to make it happen. So, like that, we include people from the global south. We are including people from all over the world to spread the message. Having said that, I would also like to get to points Shane was referring to when he was talking and showed us those really great clips and videos. It is also a step further from having the information given to the people and shared it with the people to reach behavior change. So these are two steps, and this step beyond just dishing out information is the most crucial and the most important, but also the most challenging and difficult. Nobody really has an answer, and there are huge million-dollar programs all over the African continents which are trying to work out behavior change, whether it is on health issues, on reproductive health, on HIV/AIDS, on female genital mutilation. I mean, there are many, many areas where people really try to inform, and as a reaction towards the information received by the people, get to a behavior change. But this is just one of the challenges. So, having described the environment a little bit, I would like to also address the responsibility of media, and especially of mass media, because used in the right way, mass media can have a very positive effect to whole societies. Used in the wrong way and applied in a way which is not conducive for the development and the health of a country, it has a lot of negative effects. And also this can be seen in African countries, where you have had the positive effects because the open press, the open media concept has been embraced by people. For example, in South Africa, partly in Zambia, you mentioned Kenya, but at the same time you still have negative examples where this top-down approach has not changed over the last, I don't know how many decades, as in Ethiopia and as in Sudan, for example, where I lived for 4 years. And the whole civil society is just so destroyed because there's always this fear that as soon as you do one step forward, you will be imprisoned as a result, or your family will face difficulties. So I would like to come, I don't know how long actually I'm allowed to talk, get a little bit more into our work and the connection, the concrete connection to the media we have, and also again to the fact that we believe that globalization in its various aspects and in its various negative as well as positive points made an organization like OXFAM possible to be really powerful when it comes to have pictures talk, to overcome also the word and to make things clear in a way that everybody worldwide, no matter whether you speak the language, actually understands the core message of things. This is why we as an organization worked on a global identity, which makes also our partners from the Global South, which are an integral part of all our planning and all our implementation of whatever we do, able to be really part of the identity. So what we were doing in our media communication before we had this global identity was going to apply a taste in media or in representing our organization, which was very northern driven. And since we were growing as an organization and got more southern affiliates on board, we were thinking about changing our outlook and how we would like to be seen by our audience. And so, for example, OXFAM India played a large role, or OXFAM Mexico played suddenly a large role. And we look now, with our global identity, since 2 years, totally different from before. We are more colorful. We are more open in a way that pictures are addressing content and that the word is less prominent in a lot of our publications and also in what the media is picking up from us. Like that, we are able to have campaigns which are global campaigns. For example, at the moment, we are campaigning on, the title of the campaign is Growth, and we are talking about biofuel, climate change, land grabbing, all these things which are having impacts on all sides of the globe, and we are using our identity as a one Oxfam with one voice to have campaigns on the African continent, the Asian continent, like really all over the world. And that is only possible because we are able to cooperate, collaborate with mass media and media all over the world in a positive way. So I would like to end here and show you actually one little clip from OXFAM Germany now. I can show you others from other areas in the world, but this is my absolute favorite, and I think it also speaks for itself. It is a part of our campaign to fight food speculation. As some of you might know, there is a lot of speculation going on with food, with maize trade, with rice trade, and all that led 2-3 years ago in 61 countries, mainly in Africa, to riots because people were not able to buy their basic goods, their basic food anymore. So we picked it up and we did a study on the banks and their investment into trading and holding back, for example, rice or maize, and only putting it in the market when people were literally starving, but would pay 3, 4, 5 times as much as they originally would. And some German institutes were very involved, and by now 9 took their investment out of food speculation, and only the Deutsche Bank, unfortunately, is remaining, but the others took a step back, and this became a global campaign, and that shows not only what media can do, but also how the world is interlinked and how we depend on good communication globally. Can you just... Maybe we can switch the light a little bit off, because otherwise it's not... Okay, that was it.
Thank you very much. So if you have any questions.
Hi, thanks a lot for your presentation. I have a question about the philosophy behind OXFAM.
You have a question?
About the philosophy.
Okay.
About OXFAM. What values do you keep in mind when you do your aid work? Is it only Western-based values and try to put that on the situation in Africa, Asia, Mexico, or are you also looking to the local needs?
Thanks a lot for the question. I tried to address that a little bit, but I think one of the points I should mention, for example, now is that OXFAM International, which is the umbrella of all these 17 affiliates I was talking about, has now executive director from Uganda, Winnie Byanyama. And I think that, as a matter of fact itself, shows already that we have acknowledged that to be on the same level is very important, and to embrace the South and integrate the South much more than we did before. And also a sign is that we are moving away from having OXFAMs mainly in the north. We have already OXFAM Mexico, OXFAM Brazil is coming up. We have OXFAM India already, OXFAM South Africa is coming up, and I'm sure soon there will be also an OXFAM Kenya. So we are a rights-based organization. So we are looking into the rights in crisis, which is on our humanitarian part. Economic justice rights, for example, is another part. Then essential services. You have a right as a citizen globally to essential health and education services. So this is our philosophy, and we make no difference on the South or the North. And by our doing, we really try to change things also within our own organization.